Tonight we are reading Edward III by William Shakespeare. Playing King Edward,
Maurice Kessler.
Prince Edward,
Marty Goldberg.
King John,
Harley Diamond.
the Countess, Queen Philippa, French Captain, Charles Messenger.
Sylvie Hartley.
Playing Warwick and the VILLIERS.
You're on mute.
Who is playing
You're
Warwick?
mute.
Chris Carlson.
Yes. Playing Charles, King David, and Copeland.
Liz Bove.
Playing Derby.
McBove here.
Playing Derby, Mariner, Douglas, and John's Messenger.
Bernie Bosio.
Playing Audley and the French Citizen.
Michael Janove.
Playing Salisbury and Lorraine.
Richard Thompson.
Playing LODOWICK, Philip's Messenger, and Percy.
Taylor Lynne.
Playing ARTOIS, the Scottish Messenger, Herald, and Lord Montfort.
Tom Kane.
Act 1, Scene 1. London. A room of state in the palace flourish. Enter King Edward, Derby, Prince Edward, Audley, and ARTOIS.
Robert of Artois, banished though thou be from France, thy native country, yet with us thou shalt retain as great a seigneury, for we create thee Earl of Richmond here. And now go forwards with our pedigree. Who next succeeded Philip le Beau?
3 sons of his, which all successfully did sit upon their father's regal throne, yet died and left no issue of their loins.
But was my mother sister unto those?
She was, my lord, and only Isabel was all the daughters that this Philip had, whom afterward your father took to wife, and from the fragrant garden of her womb, your gracious self, the flower of Europe's hope. Derived his inheritor to France, but note the rancor of rebellious minds. When thus the lineage of Bove was out, the French obscured your mother's privilege, and though she were the next of blood, proclaimed John of the House of Valois, now their king. The reason was that they say the realm of France, replete with princes of great parentage, ought not admit a governor to rule, except he be descended of the male, and that it's the special ground of their contempt, wherewith they study to exclude your grace.
But they shall find that forged ground of theirs to be but dusty heaps of brittle sand.
Perhaps it will be thought of a heinous thing that a Frenchman should discover this. But heaven I call to record one of my vows. It is not hate, nor any private wrong, but love unto my country, and the right provokes my tongue thus lavish in report. You are the lineal watchman of our peace, and John of Valois indirectly claims what then should subjects but embrace their king, wherein may our duty more be seen than striving to rebate a tyrant's pride and place the true shepherd of our commonwealth.
This counsel, Artois, like to fruitful showers, hath added growth unto my dignity. And by the fiery vigor of thy words, hot courage is engendered in my breast, which heretofore was raked in ignorance, but now doth mount with golden wings of flame. And will approve fair Isabel's descent, able to yoke their stubborn necks with steel that spurn against my sovereignty in France.
A horn sounds. Enter Lorraine.
Say, Duke of Lorraine, wherefore art thou come?
The most renowned prince, King John of France, doth greet thee, Edward, and by me command that for so much as by his liberal gift, Guyenne dukedom is entailed to thee, thou do him lowly homage for the same, and for that purpose here I summon thee. Repair to France within these 40 days, that there, according as the custom is, thou mayest be sworn true liegeman to our king. Or else thy title in that province dies, and he himself will repossess the place.
See how occasion laughs me in the face. No sooner minded to prepare for France, but straight I am invited, nay, with threats. Upon a penalty enjoined to come, 'twere but a childish part to say him nay. Lorraine, return this answer to thy lord. I mean to visit him as he requests, but how? Not servilely disposed to bend, but like a conqueror to make him bow. Dare he command a fealty in me? Tell him the crown that he usurps is mine, and where he sets his foot, he ought to kneel. 'Tis not a petty dukedom that I claim, but of the whole dominions of the realm, which if with grudging he refuse to yield, I'll take away those borrowed plumes of his and send him naked into the wilderness.
Then, Edward, here, in spite of all thy lord, I do pronounce defiance to thy face.
Defiance, Frenchman. We rebound it back even to the bottom of thy master's throat, and be it spoke with reverence of the king, my gracious father, and these are the lords, I hold thy message but as scurrilous, and him that sent thee.
Bid him leave of the lion's case he wears, lest meeting with the lion in the field, he chance to tear him piecemeal for his pride.
The soundest counsel I can give his grace is to surrender ere he be constrained. A voluntary mischief hath less scorn than when a reproach with violence is born.
Degenerate traitor, viper to the place, what thou hast fostered in thine infancy? Bearest thou a part in this conspiracy?
He draws his sword.
Lorraine, behold the sharpness of this steel.
He draws his sword.
Fervent desire that sits against my heart is far more thorny pricking than this blade. That with the nightingale I shall be scarred as oft as I dispose myself to rest until my colors be displayed in France. This is my final answer, so be gone.
It is not that, nor any English brave, afflict me so as doth this poisoned view. That is most false, should most of all be true.
Exit Lorraine.
Now, lords, our fleeting bark is under sail. Our gage is thrown and war is soon begun, but not so quickly brought unto an end.
Enter Warwick.
But wherefore comes the Earl of Warwick? How stands the league between the Scot and us?
Cracked and dissolved, my renowned lord. The treacherous king no sooner was informed of your withdrawing of your army back, but straight forgetting of his former oath, he made invasion on the bordering towns. Berwick is won, Newcastle is spoiled and lost, and now the tyrant hath begirt with siege the castle of Roxborough, where enclosed the Countess Salisbury is like to perish.
That is thy daughter, Warwick, is it not? Whose husband hath in Brittany served so long about the planting of Lord Montfort there?
It is, my lord.
Ignoble David. Hast thou none to grieve but silly ladies with thy threatening arms? But I will make you shrink your snaily horns. First, therefore, Audley, this shall be thy charge. Go levy footmen for our wars in France. And Ned, take muster of our men-at-arms. In every shire elect a several band. Let them be soldiers of a lusty spirit, such as dread nothing but dishonor's blot. Be wary, therefore, since we do commence a famous war and with so mighty a nation. Darby, be thou ambassador for us unto our father-in-law, the Earl of Hainault. Make him acquainted with our enterprise, and likewise will him with our own allies that are in Flanders, to solicit too the Emperor of Almaine in our name. Myself, while you are jointly thus employed, will with these forces that I have at hand march, and once more repulse the traitorous Scot. But sirs, be resolute. We shall have wars on every side, and Ned, thou must begin now to forget thy study and thy books, and ewer thy shoulder to an armor's weight.
Within this school of honor I shall learn either to sacrifice my foes to death, or in a rightful quarrel spend my breath.
Then cheerfully forward, each a several way. In great affairs, 'tis not to use delay.
Exeunt. Scene 2, Roxborough, before the castle. Enter the Countess above.
Alas, how much in vain my poor eyes gaze for succor that my sovereign should send. My father Warwick, I fear thou wants the liveless spirit sharply to solicit with vehement suit the king in my behalf. Thou dost not tell him what a grief it is to be the scornful captive of a Scot, either to be wooed with broad untuned oaths, or forced by rough insulting barbarism. Thou dost not tell him if he here prevail, How much they will drive us in the north, and in their vile, uncivil, skipping gigs, brave forth their conquests and our overthrow, even in the barren, bleak, and fruitless air.
Enter King David, Douglas, and Lorraine below.
I must withdraw. The everlasting foe comes to the wall. I'll closely step aside and list their babble, blunt and full of pride.
The Countess withdraws.
Look, I'm coming. So, my Lord Lorraine, to our brother of France, commend us as the man in Christendom that we most reverence and entirely love. Touching your embassage, return and say that we with England will not enter parley, nor never make fair weather or take truce, but burn their neighbor towns and so persist with eager roads beyond their city of York, and never shall our bonny riders rest, nor rusting canker have the time to their light-born snaffles, nor their nibble spurs, nor lay aside their jacks of grimmelled maul, nor hang their staves of grained Scottish ash in peaceful wise upon their city walls, nor from their button tawny leathern belts dismissed their biting vineyards, till your king cry out, enough, spare England now for pity. Farewell, and tell him that you leave us here before this castle. Say you came from us, even when we had that yielded to our hands.
I take my leave, and fairly will return your acceptable greeting to my king.
Exit
Now,
Lorraine.
Douglas, to our former task again for the division of this certain spoil.
My liege, I crave the lady, and no more.
Nay, soft you, sir. First I must make my choice, and first I do bespeak her for myself.
Why then, my liege, let me enjoy her jewels.
Those are her own, still liable to her, and who inherits her hath those withal.
Enter the Scottish messenger in haste.
My liege, as we were pricking on the hills to fetching booty, marching hitherward, we might descry a host of men. The sun reflecting on the armor showed a field of plate. What a pick's advance, bethink your highness speedily herein. An easy march within 4 hours will bring the hindmost rank unto this palace, my liege.
Dislodge, it is the King of England.
Exit Scottish messenger.
Jemmy, my man, saddle my bonny black.
Meanest thou to fight, Douglas? We are too weak.
I know it well, my liege, and therefore fly.
My lords of Scotland, will you stay and drink?
She mocks at us, Douglas. I cannot endure it.
Say good, my lord. Which is he must have the lady, and which her jewels? I'm sure, my lords, you will not hence till you have shared the spoils.
She heard the messenger and heard our talk, and now that comfort makes her scorn at us.
Re-enter the Scottish messenger in
Oh,
more
my
haste.
good lord! Oh, we are all surprised.
After the French ambassador, my liege, and tell him that you dare not ride to York. Excuse it that your bonny horse is lame.
She heard that too. Intolerable grief. Woman, farewell, although I do not stay.
Exit King David, Douglas, and Scottish messenger.
This not for fear, and yet you run away. Oh, happy comfort, welcome to our house. The confident and boisterous boasting Scot, that swore before my walls they would not back for all the armed power of this land. With faceless fear that ever turns his back, turns hands against the blasting northeast wind upon the bare report and name of arms.
Enter Warwick.
Oh, summer's day, See where my father comes.
How fares my dear? We are not Scots. Why do you shut your gates against your friends?
Well, may I give a welcome, father, to thee, for thou comes well to chase my foes from hence.
The king himself is come in person hither. Dear aunt, descend in gratitude his highness.
How may I entertain his majesty, to shew my duty and his dignity?
Exit Countess from above. Enter King Edward, Artois, Lodowick, and others.
What, are the stealing foxes fled and gone before we could uncouple at their heels?
They are, my liege, but with a cheerful cry. Hot hounds and hearty chase them at the heels.
Enter the Countess below.
This is the Countess Warwick, is it not?
Even she, my liege, whose beauty tyrants fear, as a May blossom with pernicious winds, hath sullied, withered, overcast, and done.
What strange enchantment lurked in those her eyes when they excelled this excellence they have, that now her dim decline hath power to draw my subject eyes from piercing majesty to gaze on her with doting admiration.
In duty, lower than the ground I kneel, and for my dull knees bow my feeling heart, to witness my obedience to your highness, with many millions of a subject's thanks, for this royal presence, whose approach hath driven war and danger from my gate.
Lady, stand up. I come to bring thee peace, however thereby I have purchased war.
No war to you, my liege. The Scots are gone, and gallop home towards Scotland with their hate.
Lest yielding here I pine in shameful love. Come, we'll pursue the Scots. Artois, away!
A little while, my gracious sovereign, stay, and let the power of a mighty king honor our roof. My husband in the wars, when he shall hear it, will triumph for joy. Then, my dear liege, now niggard not thy state, being at the wall, enter our homely gate.
Pardon me, Countess. I will come no near. I dreamed tonight of treason, and I fear.
Far from this place, let ugly treason lie.
No further off than her conspiring eye, which shoots infected poison in my heart, beyond repulse of wit or cure of art. Now in the sun alone it doth not lie with light to take light from a mortal eye, for here 2 day stars that mine eyes would see more than the sun steals mine own light from me. Contemplative desire, desire to be in contemplation that may master thee. Warwick, Artois, to horse, and let's away.
What might I speak to make my sovereign stay?
What needs a tongue to such a speaking eye that more persuades than winning oratory?
Let not thy presence, like the April sun, flatter our earth and suddenly be done. More happy do not make our outward wall than thou wilt grace our inner house withal. Our house, my liege, is like a country swain, whose habit rude and manners blunt and plain, proceedeth not and yet inly beautified, with bounteous riches and fair hidden pride. For where the golden ore doth buried lie, the ground undecked with nature's tapestry seems barren, sere, unfertile, fruitless, dry, and where the upper turf of the earth doth boast his pride, perfumes, and party-colored coast, delve there and find this issue and their pride, to spring from ordure and corruption's side, but to make up might all too long compare. These ragged walls no testimony are, what is within, but like a cloak doth hide from weather's waste the undergarnished pride. More gracious than my terms can let thee be, entreat thyself to stay a while with me.
As wise as fair. What fond fit can be heard when wisdom keeps the gate as beauty's guard? It shall attend while I attend on thee. Come on, my lords, here I will host tonight.
Exeunt. Act 2, Scene 1, the same. Gardens of the castle. Enter Lodowick.
I might perceive his eye in her eye lost, his ear to drink her sweet tongue's utterance, and changing passion, like inconstant clouds that rack upon the carriage of the winds, increase and die in his disturbed cheeks. Lo, when she blushed, even then did he look pale, as if her cheeks by some enchanted power attracted had the cherry blood from his. Anon with reverent fear when she grew pale, his cheeks put on their scarlet ornaments, but no more like her oriental red than brick to coral or live things to dead. Why did he then thus counterfeit her looks? If she did blush, 'twas tender modest shame, being in the sacred presence of a king. If he did blush, 'twas red and modest shame, to veil his eyes amiss, being a king. If she looked pale, 'twas silly woman's fear, to bear herself in presence of a king. If he looked pale, it was with guilty fear to dote amiss, being a mighty king. Then, Scottish wars, farewell. I fear 'twill prove a lingering English siege of peevish love.
Enter King Edward.
Here comes his highness, walking all alone.
She is grown more fairer far since I came hither. Her voice more silver every word than other, her wit more fluent. What a strange discourse unfolded she of David and his Scots. Even thus quoth she, he spake, and then spoke broad with epithites and accents of the Scot, but somewhat better than the Scot could speak. And thus, quoth she, and answered then herself, for who could speak like her? But she herself breathes from the wall like an angel's note from heaven of sweet defiance to her barbarous foes. When she would talk of peace, methinks her tongue commanded war to prison. When of war, it wakened Caesar from his Roman grave to hear war beautified by her discourse. Wisdom is foolishness, but in her tongue. Beauty a slander, but in her face. There is no summer, but in her cheerful looks, nor frosty winter, but in her disdain. I cannot blame the Scots that did besiege her, for she is all the treasure of our land, but call them cowards that they ran away, having so rich and fair a cause to stay. Art thou there, Lodowick? Give me ink and paper.
I will, my liege.
This fellow is well read in poetry, and hath a lusty and persuasive spirit. I will acquaint him with my passion, which he shall shadow with a veil of lawn, through which the Queen of Beauty's queen shall see herself the ground of my infirmity. Hast thou pen and ink and paper ready, Lodowick?
Ready, my liege.
Now, Lodowick, invocate some golden muse to bring thee hither an enchanted pen that may for sighs set down, true sighs indeed, talking of grief to make thee ready grown. And when thou writst of tears, encouch the word before and after with such sweet laments that it may raise drops in a Tartar's eye, and make a flint heart Scythian pitiful, for so much moving hath a poet's pen. Then if thou be a poet, move thou so, and be enriched by thy sovereign's love. For if the touch of sweet concordant strings could force attendance in the ears of hell, how much more shall the strain of poet's wit beguile and ravish soft and human minds?
To whom, my lord, shall I direct my style?
To one that shames the fair and sots the wise, whose body is an abstract or a brief, contains each general virtue of the world. Better than beautiful thou must begin. Devised for fair a fairer word than fair. Every ornament that thou wouldst praise, fly it a pitch above the soar of praise. For flattery, fear thou not to be convicted. For were thy admiration 10 times more, 10 times 10,000 more, the worth exceeds of that thou art to praise. Thy praise is worth. Begin. I will to contemplate the while. Forget not to set down how passionate, how heartsick, and how full of languishment her beauty makes me.
Write I to a woman?
What beauty else could triumph over me? Or who but women do our love lays greet? What thinkst thou I did bid thee praise a horse?
Of what condition or estate she is, 'twere requisite that I should know, my lord.
Lodowick writes as King Edward talks.
Of such a state that hers is as a throne, then my estate the footstool where she treads. Then mayst thou judge what her condition is by the proportion of her mightiness. Write on, while I peruse her in my thoughts. Her voice to music, or the nightingale to music, every summer leading swain compares his sunburnt lover when she speaks. Why should I speak of the nightingale? The nightingale sings of adulterate wrong, and that compared is too satirical for sin, though sin would not be so esteemed. But rather virtue, sin, sin, virtue deemed. Her hair, far softer than the silkworm's twist, like to a flattering glass doth make more fair the yellow amber. Like a flattering glass comes in too soon. For writing of her eyes, I'll say that like a glass they catch the sun, and thence the hot reflection doth rebound against the breast and burns my heart within. Ah, what world of descant makes my soul upon this voluntary ground of love? Come, Lodowick, hast thou turned thy ink to gold? If not, write but in letters capital my mistress's name, and it will gild thy paper. Read, Lodowick, read. Fill thou the empty hollows of mine ears with the sweet hearing of thy poetry.
I have not a period brought her praise.
Her praise is as my love, both infinite, which apprehend such violent extremes that they disdain an ending period. Then wherefore talkst thou of a period to that which craves unended admiration? Read, let us hear.
More fair and chaste than is the queen of shades.
That line hath two faults, gross and palpable. Comparest thou her to the pale queen of night, who being set in dark seems therefore light? What is she when the sun lifts up his head, but like a fading taper, dim and dead? My love shall brave the eye of heaven at noon, and being unmasked, outshine the golden sun.
What is the other fault, my sovereign lord?
Read over the line again.
More fair and chaste.
I did not bid thee talk of chastity. To ransack so the treasure of her mind, for I had rather have her chased than chaste. Out with the moon line, I will none of it. And let me have her likened to the sun. Say she has thrice more splendor than the sun, that her perfections emulate the sun, that she breeds sweets as plenteous as the sun, that she doth draw cold winter like the sun, that she doth cheer fresh summer like the sun, that she doth dazzle gazers like the sun. And in this application to the sun, bid her be free and general as the sun, who smiles upon the basest weed that grows as lovingly as on the fragrant rose. Let's see what follows that same moonlight line.
More bold in constancy.
In constancy than who?
Than Judith was.
Ah, monstrous line. Put in the next a sword, and I shall woo her to cut off my head. Blot, good Lodowick. Let us hear the next.
That's all that yet is done.
I'll thank thee then that thou hast done little ill, but what is done is passing. Passing ill. Love cannot sound well but in lovers' tongues. Give me the pen and paper. I will write.
Enter Countess.
But soft, here comes the treasurer of my spirit. Lodowick, thou knowst not to... Lodowick, thou knowst not how to draw a battle. These wings, these flankers, and these squadrons argue in the defective discipline. Thou shouldst have placed this here and this other here.
Pardon my boldness, my thrice gracious lord. Let my intrusion here be called my duty, that comes to see my sovereign, how he fares.
Go. Draw the same. I'll tell thee in what form.
I go.
Exit Lodowick.
Sorry, I am to see my liege so sad. What may thy subject do to drive from thee, thy gloomy consort, sullen melancholy?
Lady, I am blunt and cannot strew the flowers of solace in a ground of shame. Since I came hither, Countess, I am wronged.
Now God forbid that any in my house should think my sovereign wrong. Thrice gentle king, acquaint me with your cause of discontent.
How near then shall I be to remedy?
As near, my liege, as all my woman's power can pawn itself to buy thy remedy.
If thou speakst true, then I have my redress. Engage thy power to redeem my joys, and I am joyful, Countess, else I die.
I will, my liege.
Swear, Countess, that thou wilt.
By heaven, I will.
Then take thyself a little way aside, and tell thyself, a king doth dote on thee. Say that within thy power it doth lie to make him happy, and that thou hast sworn to give him all the joy within thy power. Do this, and tell me when I shall be happy.
All this is done, my thrice dread sovereign. That power of love that I have power to give, thou hast, with all devout obedience. Employ me how thou wilt in proof thereof.
Thou hear'st me say that I do dote on thee.
If on my beauty, take it if thou canst. Though little, I do prize it 10 times less. If on my virtue, take it if thou canst. For virtue's store by giving doth augment. Be it on what it will, that I can give and thou canst take away, inherited.
It is thy beauty that I would enjoy.
Oh, were it painted, I would wipe it off, and dispossess myself to give it thee. But, sovereign, it is soldered to my life. Take one and both, for like a humble shadow, it haunts the sunshine of my summer's life.
But thou mayst lend it me to sport withal.
As easy may my intellectual soul be lent away, and yet my body live. As lend my body, palace to my soul, away from her, and yet retain my soul. My body is her bower, her court, her abbey, and she an angel, pure, divine, unspotted. If I should leave her house, my lord, to thee, I kill my poor soul, and my poor soul me.
Didst not thou swear to give me what I would?
I did, my liege. So what you would, I could.
I wish no more of thee than thou mayst give. Nor beg I do not, but I rather buy. That is thy love, and for that love of thine in rich exchange I tender to thee mine.
But that your lips were sacred, my lord, you would profane the holy name of love. That love you offer me you cannot give, for Caesar owes that tribute to his queen. That love you beg of me I cannot give, for Sarah owes that duty to her lord. He that doth clip and counterfeit your stamp shall die, my lord, and will your sacred self commit high treason against the King of Heaven, to stamp his image in forbidden metal. Forgetting your allegiance and your oaths, in violating marriage sacred law, you break a greater honor than yourself. To be a king is of a younger house than to be married. Your progenitor, sole reigning Adam on the universe, by God was honored for a married man. By not him, anointed for a king, it is a penalty to break your statutes, though not enacted with your highness' hand. How much more to infringe the holy act, made by the mouth of God, sealed with his hand. I know my sovereign, in my husband's love, who now doth loyal service in his wars, doth but so try the wife of Salisbury, whether she will hear a wanton's tale or no. Let's being there and guilty by my stay, from that, not from my liege, I turn away.
Exit Countess.
Is her beauty by her words divine, or are her words sweet chaplains to her beauty? Like as the wind doth beautify a sail, and as a sail becomes the unseen wind, so do her words, her beauty, beauty words. Religion is austere and beauty gentle. Too strict a guardian for so fair a ward. I must enjoy her, for I cannot beat with reason and reproof fond love away.
Enter Warwick.
Oh, here comes her father. I will work with him to bear my colors in this field of love.
How is it my sovereign is so sad? May I, with pardon, know your highness's grief, and that my old endeavor will remove it, and it shall not cumber long your majesty?
A kind and voluntary gift thou prefers, that I was forward to have begged of thee. But oh, thou world, great nurse of flattery, why dost thou tip men's tongues with golden words, and pays their deeds with weight of heavy lead, that fair performance cannot follow promise? Oh, that a man might hold the heart's close book, and choke the lavish tongue when it doth utter the breath of falsehood not charactered there.
Far be it from the honor of my age, that I should owe bright gold and render lead. Age is a cynic, not a flatterer. I say again, if I knew your grief, and that by me it may be lessened, my proper harm should buy your highness's good.
These are the vulgar tenders of false men that never pay the duty of their words. Thou wilt not stick to swear what thou hast said, but when thou know'st my grief's condition, this rash disgorged vomit of thy word, thou wilt eat up again and leave me helpless.
By heaven, I will not, though your majesty did bid me upon your sword and die.
Say that my grief is in no way medicinable, but by the loss and bruising of thine honor.
If nothing but thy loss may vantage you, I would account that loss my vantage too.
Think'st that thou canst unswear thy oath again?
I cannot, nor I would not if I could.
But if thou dost, what shall I say to thee?
What may be said to any perjured villain that breaks the sacred warrant of an oath, and be half broke his faith with God and man, and from them both stands excommunicate.
What office were it to suggest a man to break a lawful and religious vow?
An office for the devil, not for man.
That devil's office must thou do for me, or break thy oath, or cancel all the bonds of love and duty twixt thyself and me. And therefore, Warwick, if thou art thyself, the lord and master of thy word and oath, go to thy daughter, and in my behalf command her, woo her, win her any ways, to be my mistress and my secret love. I will not stand to hear thee make reply. Thy oath break hers, or let thy sovereign die.
Oh,
Exit King Edward.
oh, doting king, oh, detestable office. Well may I tempt myself to wrong myself. When he hath sworn me by the name of God to break an oath made by the name of God, what if I swear by this right hand of mine to cut this right hand off? The better way were to profane the idol than confound it. But neither will I do. I'll keep mine oath, and to my daughter make recantation of all virtue I have preached to her. I'll say she must forget her husband Salisbury, if she remember to embrace the king. I'll say an oath may easily be broken, but not so easily pardoned being broken. I'll say it is true charity to love, but not true love to be so charitable. I'll say this greatness may bear out the shame, but not his kingdom can buy out the sin. I'll say it is my duty to persuade, but not her honesty to give consent.
Enter Countess.
See where she comes. Was never father had against his child an embassage so bad.
My lord and father, I have sought for you. My mother and the peers importune you to keep in presence of his majesty, and do your best to make his highness merry.
How shall I enter this graceless errand? I must not call her child, for where's the father that all in such a suit seduce his child? Then, wife of Salisbury, shall I so begin? No, he's my friend, and where is found and friend, that will do friendship such endamagement. Neither my daughter nor my dear friend's wife. I am not Warwick as thou thinkest I am, that thus have housed my spirit in this form to do a message to thee from the king. The mighty king of England dotes on thee, and he hath power to take away thy life. He hath power to take away thy life, hath power to take thy honor, then consent to pawn thine honor upon rather than thy life. Honor is often lost and got again, but life, once gone, hath no recovery. The sun that withers hay doth nourish grass. The king would disdain thee, will advance thee. The poets write that great Achilles' spear could heal the wound it made. The moral is, what mighty men misdo, they can amend. The king will in his glory hide thy shame, and those that gaze on him to find out thee will lose their eyesight looking in the sun. What can one drop of poison harm the sea, whose huge vestures can digest the ill and make it lose his operation? Beside, it is no harm to do the thing which without shame could not be left undone. Thus have I, in his majesty's behalf, apparelled sin in virtuous sentences, and dwell upon thy answer in his suit.
Unnatural besiege, woe me, unhappy, to have escaped the danger of my foes, and to be 10 times worse injured by friends. Had he no means to stain my honest blood, but to corrupt the author of my blood to be his scandalous and vile solicitor? No marvel though the branches be then infected, when poison hath encompassed the root. No marvel though the leprous infant die, when the stern dame envenometh the dog. Why then give sin a passport to offend, and use the dangerous reign of liberty? Blot out the strict forbidding of the law, and cancel every canon that prescribes a shame for shame or penance for offense. No, let me die, if his too boisterous will have it so, before I will consent to be an actor in his graceless lust.
Why, now thou speakest as if I would have thee speak. And mark how I unsay my words again. An honorable grave is more esteemed than the polluted closet of a king. The greater man, the greater is the thing. Be it good or bad, that he shall undertake a spacious field of reasons could I urge between his glory, daughter, and thy shame. That poison shows worst in a golden cup. Dark night seems darker by the lightning flash. Lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds, and every glory that inclines to sin, the shame is trebled by the opposite. So leave I with my blessing in thy bosom, which then convert to a most heavy curse, when thou convertest from honor's golden name to the black faction of a bed-blotting shame.
I'll follow thee, and when my mind turns so, my body sink my soul in endless woe.
Exeunt. Scene 2, the same, a room in the castle. Enter at one door Derby, at another Audley, with a drum.
Thrice noble Audley, well encountered here. How is it with our sovereign and his peers?
'Tis full a fortnight since I saw his highness, what time he sent me forth to muster men, which I accordingly have done, and bring them hither in fair array before his majesty. What news, my lord of Derby, from the emperor?
As good as we desire. The emperor hath yielded to his highness friendly aid, and makes our king lieutenant general in all his lands and large dominions, then via for the spacious bounds of France.
What? Doth his highness leap to hear these news?
I have not yet found time to open them. The king is in his closet malcontent for what I know not, but he gave in charge till after dinner none should interrupt him. The Countess Salisbury and her father Warwick, ARTOIS, and all look underneath the brows.
Undoubtedly, then something is amiss.
Flourish.
The trumpets sound. The king is now abroad.
Enter King Edward.
Here comes his highness.
Before my sovereign, all my sovereign's wish.
Thou wert a witch to make it so.
The emperor agreedeth you,
Would it were the Countess.
and hath accorded to your highness' suit.
Thou liest. She hath not, but I would she had.
All love and duty to my lord the king.
Well, all but one is none. What news with you?
I have, my liege, levied those horse and foot according to your charge, and brought them hither.
Then let those foot trudge hence upon those horse according to our discharge, and be gone. Darby, I'll look upon the Countess's mind anon.
The Countess mine, my liege.
I mean the Emperor. Leave me alone.
What is this mind?
Let's leave him to his humor.
Exeunt Audley and Derby.
Thus from the heart's abundance speaks the tongue. Countess for Emperor. And indeed, why not? She is as imperator over me, and I to her as am a kneeling vassal that observes the pleasure or displeasure of her eye. The quarrel that I have requires no arms, but these of mine, and these shall meet my foe in a deep match of penetrable groans. Mine eyes shall be my arrows, and my sighs shall serve me as the vantage of the wind to whirl away my sweetest artillery. But alas, she wins the son of me, for that she is she herself, and thus it comes that poets term the wanton warrior blind, but loveth eyes as judgment to his steps, till too much loved glory dazzles them.
A drum within. Enter Lodowick.
What says the more than Cleopatra's match to Caesar now?
That yet, my liege, ere night she will resolve your majesty.
Another drum within.
What drum is this that thunders forth this march to start the tender Cupid in my bosom?
My liege, the drum that stroke the lusty march stands with Prince Edward, your thrice valiant son.
Enter Prince Edward. Exit Lodowick.
I see the boy. Oh, how his mother's face modeled in his corrects my strayed desire and rates my heart and chides my thievish eye, who being rich enough in seeing her yet seeks elsewhere, and basest theft is that which cannot cloak itself on poverty. Now, boy, what news?
I have assembled, my dear lord and father, the choicest buds of all our English blood for our affairs in France, and here we come to take direction from your majesty.
Still do I see in him delineate his mother's visage. Those his eyes are hers, who looking wistly on me make me blush. For faults against themselves give me evidence. Lust is fire, and men like lanterns show light lust within themselves, even through themselves. Away loose silks of wavering vanity. Shall the large limit of fair Brittany by me be overthrown, and I shall not master this little mansion of myself? Give me an armor of eternal steel, I go to conquer kings, and shall I not then subdue myself and be my enemy's friend? It must not be. Come, boy, forward, advance. Let's with our colors sweet the air of France.
Re-enter Lodowick.
My liege, the Countess with a smiling cheer desires access unto your majesty.
Why, there it goes. That very smile of hers hath ransomed captive France and set the king, the dauphin, and the peers at liberty. Go, leave me, Ned, and revel with thy friends.
Exit Prince Edward.
Thy mother is but black, and thou, like her, doth put it in my mind how foul she is. Go, fetch the Countess hither in thy hand.
Exit Lodowick.
And let her chase away these winter clouds, for she gives beauty both to heaven and earth. The sin is more to hack and hew poor men than to embrace in an unlawful bed the register of all rarities since leathern Adam till this youngest hour.
Enter Countess.
Now, my soul's playfellow, art thou come to speak the more than heavenly word of yea to my objection in thy beauteous love?
My father, on his blessing, hath commanded.
That thou shalt yield to me?
Aye, dear my liege, your due.
And that, my dearest love, can be no less than right for right, and render love for love.
Than wrong for wrong, and endless hate for hate, But sit, I see your majesty bent, so bent, that my unwillingness, my husband's love, and your high estate, nor no respect respected, can be my help. But that your mightiness will overbear and awe these dear regards. I bind my discontent to my content, and what I would not, I'll compel, I will. Provided that yourself remove those lets that stand between your highness' love and mine.
Name them, fair countess, and by heaven I will.
It is their lives that stand between our love, that I would have choked up my sovereign.
Whose lives, my lady?
My thrice loving liege, your queen and Salisbury, my wedded husband, who live in, have that title of our love, that we cannot bestow but by their death.
Thy opposition is beyond our law.
So is your desire. If the law can hinder you to execute the one, let it forbid you to attempt the other. I cannot think you love me as you say, unless you do make good what you have sworn.
No more. Thy husband and the queen shall die. Fairer thou art by far than Hero was, beardless Leander not so strong as I. He swam an easy current for his love, but I will through a Hellespont of blood to arrive at Sestos where my hero lies.
Nay, you'll do more. You'll make the river too with their heart bloods that keep our love asunder, of which my husband and your wife are twain.
Thy beauty makes them guilty of their death, and gives in evidence that they shall die, upon which verdict I their judge condemn them.
O perjured beauty, more corrupted judge, when to this great star chamber o'er our heads, the universal sessions calls the count. This packing evil, we both shall tremble for it.
What says my fair love? Is she resolute?
Resolute to be dissolved, and therefore this. Keep but thy word, great king, and I am thine. Stand where thou dost. I'll part a little from thee, and see how I will yield me to thy hands. Here by my side doth hang my wedding knives. Take thou the one, and with it kill thy queen, and learn by me to find her where she lies. And with the other I'll dispatch my love, and now lies fast asleep within my heart. When they are gone, then I'll consent to love. Stir not, lascivious king, to hinder me. My resolution is more nimble far than thy prevention can be in my rescue. And if thou stir, I strike. Therefore stand still, and hear the choice that I will put thee to. Either swear to leave thy most unholy suit, and never henceforth to solicit me, or else, by heaven, this sharp-pointed knife shall stain thy earth with that which thou wouldst stain my poor chaste blood. Swear, Edward, swear, or I will strike and die before thee here.
Even by that power I swear that gives me now the power to be ashamed of myself. I never mean to part my lips again in any words that tends to such a suit. Arise, true English lady, whom our isle may better boast of than ever Roman might of her, whose ransacked treasury hath tasked the vain endeavor of so many pens. Arise, and be my fault thy honor's fame, which after ages shall enrich thee with. I am awakened from this idle dream. Warwick, my son, Derby, Artois, Audley, brave warriors all, where are you all this while?
Enter Prince Edward, Warwick, Audley, Derby, and Artois.
Warwick, I make thee Warden of the North. Thou, Prince of Wales, and Audley straight to sea. Scour to New Haven, some there stay for me. Myself, Artois, and Derby will through Flanders to greet our friends there and to crave their aid. This night will scarce suffice to discover my folly's siege against a faithful lover. For ere the sun shall gild the eastern sky, we'll wake him with our martial harmony.
Exeunt, Act 3, Scene 1. Flanders, the French camp. Enter King John of France, his two sons, Charles of Normandy and Philip, and the Duke of Lorraine.
Here, till our navy of 1,000 sail have made the breakfast to our foe by sea, let us encamp to wait their happy speed. Lorraine, what readiness is Edward in? How hast thou heard that he provided is of martial furniture for this exploit?
To lay aside unnecessary soothing, and not to spend in time and circumstance, 'tis bruited for a certainty, my lord, that he's exceedingly strongly fortified. His subjects flock as willingly to war as if unto a triumph they were led.
England was wont to harbor malcontents, bloodthirsty and seditious calatines, spendthrifts and such as gape for nothing else but changing and alteration of the state. And is it possible that they are now so loyal in themselves?
All but the Scot, who solemnly protests, and as therefore as heretofore I have informed his grace, never to sheath his sword or take a truce.
Ah, that's the anchorage of some better hope. But on the other side, to think what friends King Edward hath retained in Netherland. Among those ever-bibing epicures, those frothy Dutchmen, puffed with double beer, that drink and swill in every place they come, doth not a little aggravate mine ire. Besides, we hear the emperor cajoins and stalls him in his own authority. But all the mightier that their number is, the greater glory reaps the victory. Some friends have we beside domestic power, the stern Polonian and the warlike Dane, the king of Bohemia and of Sicily, are all become confederates with us.
Drum within, enter mariner.
Near to the coast I have descried, my lord, as I was busy in my watchful charge, the broad armado of King Edward's ships, which at the first far off I did ken, seemed as it were a grove of withered pines, but drawing near, their glorious bright aspect, their streaming ensigns wrought of coloured silk, like to a meadow full of sundry flowers, adorns the naked bosom of the earth, majestical the order of their course, figuring the horned circle of the moon, and on the top gallant of the admiral, and likewise all the handmaids of his train, the arms of England and of France unite, are quartered equally by herald's art, thus tightly carried with a merry gale. They plough the ocean hitherward amain.
Dare he already crop the fleur-de-lis? I hope the honey can gather thence. He with the spider afterward approached shall suck forth deadly venom from the leaves. But where's our navy? How are they prepared to wing themselves against this flight of ravens?
They, having knowledge brought them by the scouts, did break from anchor straight and puffed with rage, no otherwise than were the sails with wind made forth, as when the empty eagle flies to satisfy his hungry griping maw.
Ah, there's for thy news. Return unto thy bark, and if thou escape the bloody stroke of war, and do survive the conflict, come again, and let us hear the manner of the fight.
Arr!
Exit mariner.
Mean space, my lords. 'Tis better we be dispersed to several places, lest they chance to land. Send the Bohemian king with his troops to pitch his battles on the lower hand. My eldest son, the Duke of Normandy, together with the aid of Muscovites, shall climb the higher ground another way. Here in the middle coast betwixt you both, Philip, my youngest son, and I will lodge. So, lords, be gone, and look unto your charge. You stand for France, an empire fair and large.
Exeunt all but King John and Philip.
Now tell me, Philip, what is thy conceit touching the challenge that the English make?
I say, my lord, claim Edward what he can, and bring he ne'er so plain a pedigree. 'Tis you are in the possession of the crown, and that's the surest point of all the law. But were it not, yet ere he should prevail, I'll make a conduit of my dearest blood, or chase those straggling upstarts home again.
Ah, well said, young Philip.
The battle is heard far
Now
off.
begun the heavy day at sea. Fight, Frenchmen, fight! Be like the field of bears when they defend their younglings in the cave. Steer, angry Nemesis, the happy helm, that with the sulphur of battles of your rage, the English fleet may be dispersed and sunk.
Cannon shot.
Oh, father, how this echoing cannon shot like sweet harmony digest my cates.
Now, boy, thou hearest what thundering terror 'tis to buckle for a kingdom's sovereignty. The earth with giddy trembling when it shakes, or when the exultations of the air break in extremity of lightning flash. Affrights not more than kings when they dispose to shew the rancor of their high swollen heart.
Retreat sounded.
Retreat is sounded, one side half the worse. Oh, if it be the French, sweet fortune, turn, and in thy turning change the forward winds, that with advantage of a favoring sky, amen they vanquish and the other fly.
Enter mariner.
My heart misgives, saying of pale death, to whom belongs the honor of the day. Relate, I pray thee, if thy breath will serve, the sad discourse of this discomfiture.
I will, my lord, my gracious sovereign. French have tamed the foil, and boasting Edward triumphs with success. These iron-hearted navies, when last I reported to your grace, both full of angry spleen, of hope and fear, hasting to meet each other in the face, at last conjoined, and by their admiral, our admiral, encountered many shot. By this the other that beheld these twain give earnest penny of a further wrack, like fiery dragons took their haughty flight, and likewise meeting from their smoky wombs sent many grim ambassadors of death. Then gan the day to turn to gloomy night, and darkness did as well enclose the quick as those that were but newly reft of life. No leisure served for friends to bid farewell, and if it had, the hideous noise was such as to each other seemed deaf and dumb. Purple the sea, whose channel filled as fast with streaming gore, that from their maimed fell, as did her gushing moistures break into the crannied clefts of those through-shot planks. Here flew ahead, dissevered from the trunk. There mangled arms and legs were tossed aloft, as when a whirlwind takes the summer dust and scatters it in middle of the air. Then might you see the reeling vessels split and tottering sink into the ruthless flood until their lofty tops were seen no more. All ships were tried both for defense and attack, and now the effect of valor and the force of revolution and of cowardice were lively pictured. How the one for fame, the other by compulsion laid about. Much did the nonpareil that brave ship, so did the black snake of Bologna, than which a bonnier vessel shall never yet spread sail. But all in vain, both sun, the wind, and tide revolted all unto our foreman's side, that we perforce were fain to give them way, and they are landed. Thus my tale is done. We have untimely lost, and they have won.
Unless they're nothing but with present speed to join our several forces, all in one, and bid them battle ere they range too far. Come, gentle Philip, let us hence depart. This soldier's words have pierced thy father's heart.
Scene 2. Picardy Fields near Crecy, drums. Enter King Edward, Derby, Artois, with soldiers from one side. Prince Edward and Lord Audley with soldiers from another.
Welcome, fair prince. How hast thou sped, my son, since thy arrival on the coast of France?
Successfully, I thank the gracious heavens. Some of their strongest cities we have won, as Harfleur, Lo, Croitoy, and Caraton, and others wasted, leaving at our heels a wide apparent field and beaten path, for solitariness to progress in. Yet those that would submit we kindly pardoned, but who in scorn refused our proffered peace endured the penalty of sharp revenge.
France, why shouldest thou be thus obstinate against the kind embracement of thy friends? How gently had we thought to touch thy breast and set our foot upon thy tender mould, but that in froward and disdainful pride thou, like a skittish and untamed colt, dost start aside and strike us with thy heels. But tell me, Ned, in all thy warlike course, hast thou not seen the usurping king of France?
Yes, my good lord, and not 2 hours ago, with full 100,000 fighting men upon the one side of the river's bank, and on the other both his multitudes. I feared he would have cropped our small power, but happily, perceiving your approach, he hath withdrawn himself to Crecy plains, where, as it seemeth by his good array, he means to bid us battle presently.
He shall be welcome. That's the thing we crave.
Edward, know that John, the true king of France, musing thou shouldst encroach upon his land, and in thy tyrannous proceeding slay his faithful subjects and subvert his towns, spits in thy face, and in this manner following upbraids thee with thine arrogant intrusion. First, I condemn thee for a fugitive, a thievish pirate, and a needy mate, one that hath either no abiding place, or else inhabiting some barren soul, where neither herb nor fruitful grain is had, dost altogether live by pilfering. Next, insomuch thou hast infringed thy faith, broke league and solemn covenant made with me, I hold thee for a false pernicious wretch. And last of all, although I scorn to cope with one so much inferior to myself, yet in respect thy thirst is all for gold, thy labor rather to be feared than loved, to satisfy thy lust in either part. Here am I come, and with me have I brought exceedingly store of treasure, pearl, and coin. Leave therefore now to persecute the weak, and armed entering conflict with the armed. Let it be seen, amongst other petty thefts, how thou canst win this pillage manfully.
If gall or wormwood have a pleasant taste, then is thy salutation honey sweet. But as the one hath no such property, so is the other most satirical. Yet, what how I regard thy worthless taunts, if thou have uttered them to foil my fame or dim the reputation of my birth, know that thy wolvish barking cannot hurt, if slyly to insinuate with the world, and with a strumpet's artificial line, to paint thy vicious and deformed cause. Be well assured the counterfeit will fade, and in the end thy foul defects be seen. But if thou didst it to provoke me on, as who should say I were but timorous or coldly negligent, did need a spur. Bethink thyself how slack I was at sea, how since my landing I have won no towns, entered no farther but upon the coast, and there have since ever securely slept. But if I have been otherwise employed, imagine, Valois, whether I intend to skirmish not for pillage, but for the crown which thou dost wear, and that I vow to have, or one of us shall fall into his grave.
Look not for cross invectives at our hands, or railing execrations of despite. Let creeping serpents hide, hid in hollow banks, sting with their tongues. We have remorseless swords, and they shall plead for us and our affairs. Yet thus much, briefly, by my father's leave, as all the immodest poison of thy throat is scandalous and most notorious lies, and our pretended quarrel is truly just. So end the battle when we meet today. May either of us prosper and prevail, or, luckless cursed, receive eternal shame.
That needs no further question, and I know his conscience witnesseth it is my right. Therefore, Valois, say, wilt thou yet resign before the sickle's thrust into the corn, or that enkindled fury turn to flame?
Edward, I know what right thou hast in France, and ere I basely will resign my crown, this champion field shall be a pool of blood, and all our prospect as a slaughterhouse.
Ooh, aye, that approves me, tyrant, what thou art. No father, king, or shepherd of thy realm, but one that tears her entrails with thy hands, and like a thirsty tiger suckest her blood.
You peers of France, why do you follow him? That is so prodigal to spend your lives?
Whom should they follow, aged impotent, but he that is their true-born sovereign?
Upbraid'st thou him because within his face time hath engraved deep characters of age? Know that these grave scholars of experience, like stiff grown oaks, will stand immovable when whirlwind quickly turns up younger trees.
Was ever any of thy father's house king but thyself before this present time? Edward's great lineage by the mother's side 500 years hath held the scepter up. Judge then, conspirators, by this descent, which is the true-born sovereign, this or that?
Father, range your battles, prate no more. These English fain would spend the time in words, that night approaching they might escape unfought.
Lords, and my loving subjects, now's the time that your intended force must bide the touch. Therefore, my friends, consider this in brief. He that you fight for is your natural king. He against whom you fight a foreigner. He that you fight for rules in clemency and reigns you with a mild and gentle bit. He against whom you fight, if he prevail, will straight enthrone himself in tyranny, make slaves of you, and with a heavy hand curtail and curb your sweetest liberty. Then to protect your country and your king, let but the haughty courage of your hearts answer the number of your able hands, and we shall quickly chase these fugitives. For what's this, Edward, but a belly guard, a tender and lascivious wantonness, that other day was almost dead for love? And what, I pray you, is his goodly guard, but scant them of their chines of beef, and take away their downy feather beds, and presently they are as resty stiff as 'twere a many overridden jades. Then, Frenchmen, scorn that such should be your lords, and rather bind you them in captive bands.
Vive le
Vive le roi! God save King John of France.
Now, on this plain of Crécy, spread yourselves, and Edward, when thou darest, begin the fight.
Exeunt King John, Charles, Philip, Lorraine, and soldiers.
We presently will meet thee, John of France. And English lords, let us resolve this day either to clear us of that scandalous crime, or be entombed in our innocence. And Ned, because this battle is the first that ever yet thou fought'st in pitched field, as ancient custom is of martialists, to dub thee with the tip of chivalry. In solemn manner we will give thee arms. Come, therefore, heralds, orderly, bring forth a strong attirement for the prince my son.
Armor, a helmet, a lance, and a shield are brought forth. King Edward gives the armor to the prince.
Edward Plantagenet, in the name of God. As with this armor I impale thy breast, so be thy noble unrelenting heart, walled in with flint of matchless fortitude, that never base affections enter there. Fight and be valiant, conquer where thou comest. Now follow, lords, and do him honor so.
Edward Plantagenet, Prince of Wales, as I do set this helmet on thy head, wherewith the chamber of thy brain is fenced, so may thy temples with Bellona's hand be still adorned with laurel victory. Fight and be valiant, conquer where thou comest.
Edward Plantagenet, Prince of Wales, receive this lance into thy manly hand. Use it in fashion of brazen pen to draw forth bloody stratagems in France, and print thy valiant deeds in honor's book. Fight and be valiant, vanquished where thou comest.
Edward Plantagenet, Prince of Wales, hold, take this target, wear it on thy arm, and may the view thereof, like Percy's shield, astonish and transform thy gazing foes to senseless images of meagre death. Fight and be valiant, conquer where thou comest.
Now, wants there naught but knighthood, which deferred we leave till thou hast won it in the field.
My gracious father, and you, forward peers, this honor you have done me animates and cheers my green yet scarce appearing strength with comfortable good presaging signs. No otherwise than did old Jacob's words, when as he breathed his blessings on his sons, these hallowed gifts of yours, when I profane, or use them not to glory of my God, to patronage the fatherless and poor, or for the benefit of England's peace. Be numb my joints, wax feeble both mine arms, wither my heart that, like a sapless tree, I may remain the map of infamy.
Then thus our steeled battles shall be ranged. The leading of the voward, Ned, is thine. To dignity, whose lusty spirit, the more we temper it with Audley's gravity, that courage and experience joined in one, your manage may be second unto none. For the main battles I will guide myself, and Derby in the rearward march behind, that orderly disposed and set in ray. Let us to horse, and God grant us the day!
Exeunt. Scene 3 the same. Alarum. Enter many Frenchmen flying, then exit. After them Prince Edward running, then exit. Then enter King John and Duke of Lorraine.
Oh, Lorraine, say, what mean our men to fly? Our number is far greater than our foes.
Ah, the garrison of Genesi, my lord, that come from Paris weary with their march, grudging to be so suddenly employed. No sooner in the forefoot took their place, but straight retiring so dismayed the rest, as likewise they betook themselves to flight, in which, for haste to make a safe escape, more in the clustering throng are pressed to death, than by the enemy of 1,000-fold.
Oh, hapless fortune! Let us yet essay, if we can counsel some of them to stay.
Exeunt. Scene 4 the same. Enter King Edward and Audley.
Lord Audley, whilst our son is in the chase, withdraw our powers unto this little hill, and here a season let us breath ourselves.
I will, my lord.
Exit Audley. Sound retreat.
Just dooming heaven, whose secret providence to our gross judgment is inscrutable, how are we bound to praise thy wondrous works, and hast this day given way unto the right, and made the wicked stumble at themselves?
Enter Artois.
Rescue, King Edward, rescue for thy son.
Rescue, Artois. What is he, prisoner, or by violence fell behind his horse?
Neither, my lord, but narrowly beset with turning Frenchmen, whom he did pursue. As it is impossible that he should escape, except your highness presently descend.
Tut, let him fight. We gave him arms today, and he is laboring for a knighthood man.
The prince, my lord, the prince, oh, succor him. He's close encompassed with the world of odds.
Then will he win a world of honor too, if he by valor can redeem him thence. If not, what remedy? We have more sons than one to comfort our declining age.
Enter Audley.
Renowned Edward, give me leave, I pray. Lead my soldiers where I may relieve your grace's son in danger to be slain. The snares of French, like emmets on a bank, muster about him, whilst he, lion-like, entangled in the net of their assaults, frantically welds and bites the woven toil. But all in vain, he could not free himself.
Audley, content. I will not have a man on pain of death sent forth to succor him. This is the day ordained by destiny to season his courage with those grievous thought, that if he breaketh out, Nestor's years on earth will make him savor still of this exploit.
But he shall not live to see those days.
Why then his epitaph is lasting praise.
Yet, good my lord, 'tis too much wilfulness to let his blood be spilt that may be saved.
Exclaim no more, for none of you can tell whether a borrowed aid will serve or no. Perhaps he is already slain or ta'en. Let Edward be delivered by our hands, and still in danger he'll expect the like. But if himself redeem from thence, he will have vanquished cheerful death and fear, and ever after dread their force no more, than if they were but babes or captive slaves.
Oh, cruel father! Farewell, Edward, then.
Farewell, sweet prince, the hope of chivalry.
Oh, would my life ransom him from death.
But soft methinks I hear the dismal charges of trumpets' loud retreat. All are not slain, I hope, that went with him. Some will return with tidings, good or bad.
Enter Prince Edward in triumph, the body of the King of Bohemia brought before him.
Oh, joyous sight! Victorious Edward lives!
Welcome, brave prince!
Welcome, Plantagenet.
Prince Edward kneels and kisses his father's hand, then rises.
First, having done my duty as beseemed, lords, I regreet you, all with hearty thanks. And now, behold, after my winter's toil, my painful voyage on the boisterous sea of wars, devouring gulfs and steely rocks, I bring my freight unto the wished port, my summer's hope, my travel's sweet reward. And here with humble duty I present this sacrifice, this first fruit of my sword, cropped and cut down even at the gate of death, the King of Bohemia, father whom I slay, whose thousands had entrenched me round about, and lay as thick upon my battered crest as on an anvil with their ponderous glaives, yet marble courage still did underprop, and when my weary arms with often blows, like the continuing laboring woodman's axe that is enjoined to fell a load of oaks, began to falter. Straight I would recover my gifts you gave me, and my zealous vow, and then new courage made me fresh again, that in despite I carved my passage forth, and put the multitude to speedy flight. Lo, thus hath Edward's hand filled your request, and done, I hope, the duty of a knight.
Aye, well thou hast deserved a knighthood, Ned. And therefore, with thy sword, yet reeking warm with blood of those that fought to be thy bane, arise, Prince Edward, trusty knight at arms. This day thou hast confounded me with joy, and proud myself fit heir unto a king.
Here is a note, my gracious lord, of those that in this conflict of our foes was slain. 11 princes of esteem, 80 barons, 120 knights, and 30,000 common soldiers, and of our men 1,000.
Our God be praised. Now, John of France, I hope thou know'st King Edward for no wantonness, no lovesick cockney, nor his soldiers' jades. But which way is the fearful king escaped?
Towards Poitiers, noble father, and his sons.
Ned, thou and Audley shall pursue them still. Myself and Darby will to Calais straight, and there begirt that haven town with siege. Now lies it on an upshot, and therefore strike and wistly follow while the game's on foot.
Exeunt. Act 4, Scene 1. Bretagne, camp of the English. Enter Lord Montfort with a coronet in his hand. With him the Earl of Salisbury.
My Lord of Salisbury, since by your aid mine enemy Sir Charles of Valois is slain, and I again am quietly possessed in Britain's dukedom, know that I resolve for this kind furtherance of your king and you to swear allegiance to his majesty, in sign whereof receive this coronet, bear it unto him, and withal mine oath never to be but Edward's faithful friend.
I take it, Montfort. Thus I hope ere long the whole dominions of the realm of France will be surrendered to his conquering hand.
Exit Montfort.
Now if I knew but safely how to pass, I would at Salise gladly meet his grace. Whether I am by letter certified that he intends to have his host removed, it shall be so. His policy will serve. Ho, who's within? Bring Villiers to me. Villiers, thou know'st thou art my prisoner, and that I might for ransom, if I would, require of thee 100,000 francs, or else retain and keep thee captive still. But so it is that for a smaller charge thou mayest be quit, and if thou wilt thyself, and this it is, procure me but a passport of Charles, the Duke of Normandy, that I, without restraint, may have recourse to Salise, thou all the countries where he hath to do, which thou mayest easily obtain, I think, by reason I have often heard thee say, he and thou were students once together, and then thou shalt be set at liberty. How sayest thou? Will thou undertake to do it?
I will, my lord, but I must speak with him.
Why, so thou shalt. Take horse and post from hence. Only before thou goest, swear by thy faith that if thou canst not compass my desire, thou wilt return my prisoner back again, and that shall be sufficient warrant for me.
To that condition I agree, my lord, and will unfeignedly perform the same.
Farewell, Villiers.
Exit Villiers.
Thus once I mean to try a Frenchman's faith.
Exit Salisbury. Scene 2, Picardy, the English camp before Calais. Enter King Edward and Derby with soldiers.
Since they refuse our proffered league, my lord, and will not ope their gates and let us in, we will entrench ourselves on every side that neither victuals nor supply of men may come to succor this accursed town. Famine shall combat when our swords are stopped.
The promised aid that made them stand aloof is now retired and gone another way. It will repent them of their stubborn will.
Enter Lord Percy.
Lord Percy, welcome. What's the news in England?
The Queen, my lord, comes here to your grace, and from her highness and the Lord Vice-Regent I bring this happy tidings of success. David of Scotland, lately up in arms, thinking belike he soon should prevail, your highness being absent from the realm, is, by the fruitful service of your peers and painful travel of the Queen herself, that, big with child, was every day in arms, vanquished, subdued, and taken prisoner.
Thanks, Percy, for thy news with all my heart. What was he took him prisoner in the field?
A squire, my lord, John Copeland is his name, who since, entreated by her majesty, denies to make surrender of his prize to any but unto your grace alone, whereat the Queen is grievously displeased.
Well then, we'll have a pursuivant dispatch to summon Copeland hither out of hand, and with him he shall bring his prisoner king.
The Queen, my lord, herself by this at sea, and purposeth, as soon as the wind will serve, to land at Calais to visit you.
She shall be welcome, and to wait her coming I'll pitch my tent near to the sandy shore.
The burgesses of Calais, mighty king, have by a council willingly decreed to yield the town and castle to your hands, upon condition it will please your grace to grant them benefit of life and goods.
Oh, they will so. Then belike they may command, dispose, elect, and govern as they list. No, sirrah. Tell them since they did refuse our princely clemency at first proclaimed, they shall not have it now, although they would. I will accept of naught but fire and sword, except within these 2 days, 6 of them that are the wealthiest merchants in the town, come naked all but for their linen shirts, with each a halter hanged about his neck, prostrate yield themselves upon their knees to be afflicted, hanged, or what I please, and so you may inform their masterships.
Exeunt all but French captain.
Why this it is to trust a broken staff? Had we not been persuaded John our king would with his army have relieved the town, we had not stood upon defiance so, but now 'tis past that no man can recall, and better some do go to rack them all.
Exeunt French captain. Scene 3. Poitou, fields near Poitiers, the French camp, tent of Charles, the Duke of Normandy. Enter Charles and Villiers.
I wonder, Villiers, thou shouldest importune me for one that is our deadly enemy?
Not for his sake, my gracious lord, not so much. I become an earnest advocate, as that thereby my ransom will be quit.
Thy ransom, man? Why needest thou talk of that? Art thou not free? And are not all occasions that happen for advantage of our foes to be accepted of and stood upon?
No, good my lord, except for the same he be just, for profit must with honor be commixed, or else our actions are but scandalous. But letting pass their intricate objections, will't please your highness to subscribe or no?
Villiers, I will not, nor I cannot do it. Salisbury shall not have his will so much to claim a passport how it please himself.
Why, then I know the extremity, my lord. I must return to prison whence I came.
Return? I hope thou wilt not. What bird that hath escaped the fowler's gin will not beware how she's ensnared again? Or what is he so senseless and secure that having hardly passed a dangerous gulf will put himself in peril there again?
Ah, but it is mine oath, my gracious lord, which in conscience I may not violate, or else a kingdom should not draw me hence.
Thine oath? Why, that doth bind thee to abide. Hast thou not sworn obedience to thy prince?
In all things that uprightly he commands, but either to persuade or threaten me not to perform the covenant of my word is lawless, and I need not to obey.
Why, is it lawful for a man to kill and not to break a promise with his foe?
To kill, my lord, when war is once proclaimed, so that our quarrel be our wrongs received. No doubt it is lawfully permitted us, but in an oath we must be well advised how we do swear, and when we once have sworn not to infringe it, though we die thereof. Therefore, my lord, as willing, I return as if I were to fly to paradise.
Villiers starts to leave.
Stay, my Villiers. Thine honorable mind deserves to be eternally admired. Thy suit shall be no longer thus deferred. Give me the paper, I'll subscribe to it.
Villiers gives the paper and Charles signs.
And wheretofore I love thee as Villiers, hereafter I'll embrace thee as myself. Stay and be still in favor with my lord.
I humbly thank your grace. I must dispatch and send this passport first unto the Earl, and then I will attend your highness's pleasure.
Do so, Villiers.
Exit Villiers.
And Charles, when he hath need, be such his soldiers howsoever he speed.
Enter King John.
Come, Charles, and arm thee. Edward is entrapped. The Prince of Wales has fallen into our hands, and we have compassed him. He cannot escape.
But will your highness fight today?
What else, my son? He's scarce 8,000 strong. and we are 70,000 at the least.
I have a prophecy, my gracious lord, wherein is written at what success is like to happen us in this outrageous war. It was delivered me at Crecy Field by one that is an aged hermit there. When feathered fowl shall make thine army tremble, and flint stones rise and break the battle's ray, then think on him that doth not now dissemble, for that shall be the hapless dreadful day. Yet in the end thy foot thou shalt advance as far in England as thy foe in France.
By this it seems we shall be fortunate, for as it is impossible that stones should ever rise and break the battle ray, or airy fowl make men in arms to quake, so it is like we shall not be subdued. Or say this might be true, yet in the end, since he doth promise we shall drive him hence, and forage their country as they have done ours. By this revenge that loss will seem the less, but all our frivolous fancies, toys, and dreams. Once we are sure we have ensnared the son, cast we the father after how we can.
Exeunt. Scene 4 the same. The English camp. Enter Prince Edward, Audley, and others.
Audley, the arms of death embrace us round, and comfort have we none, save that to die we pay our sour earnest for a sweeter life. At Crecy Field, out clouds of warlike smoke choked up these French mouths and dissevered them. But now their multitudes of millions hide, masking, as 'twere, the beauteous burning sun, leaving no hope to us but sullen dark and eyeless terror of all-ending night.
With sudden mighty and expedient head that they have made fair princes wonderful. Before us in the valley lies the king, vantage with all that heaven and earth can yield. His party stronger battled than our whole. His son, the braving Duke of Normandy, hath trimmed the mountain on our right hand up in shining plate, that now the inspiring hill shews like a silver quarry, or an orb, aloft the which the banners, bannerets, and new replenished pendants cuff the air, and beat the winds that for their gaudiness struggles to kiss them. On our left hand lies Philip, the younger issue of the king, coating the other hill in such array that all his gilded upright pikes do seem straight trees of gold. The pendants, pendant leaves, and thy device of antique heraldry, quartered in colours seemingly sundry fruits, make it the orchard of the Hesperides. Behind us to the hill doth bear his height, for like a half-moon opening but one way, it rounds us in. There at our backs are lodged the fatal crossbows, and the battle there is governed by the rough Chalion. Then thus it stands, the valley of our flight, the king binds in. The hills on either hand are proudly royalized by his sons, and on the hill behind stands certain death, in pay and service with Chalion.
Death's name is much more mighty than his deeds. Thy parceling this power hath made it more than all the world, and called but a power. These quarters, squadrons, and these regiments, before us, behind us, and on either hand, are but a power. When we name a man, his hand, his foot, his head hath several strengths, and being all but oneself instant strength. Why, all this many, Audley, is but one, and we can call it all but one man's strength. He that hath far to go tells it by miles. If he should tell the steps, it kills his heart. The drops are infinite that make a flood, yet thou knowest we call it but rain. As many sands as these my hands can hold are but my handful of so many sands, easily taken up and quickly thrown away. But if I stand to count them, sand by sand, their number would confound my memory and make 1,000 millions of a task, which briefly is no more, indeed, than one. There is but one France, one king of France. That France hath no more kings, and that same king hath but the pursuant legion of one king. And we have one. Then apprehend no odds, for 1 to 1 is fair equality.
Enter John's messenger.
What tidings, messenger? Be plain and brief.
The King of France, my sovereign lord and master, greets by me his foe, the Prince of Wales. If thou call forth 100 men of name, of lords, knights, squires, and English gentlemen, and with thyself and those kneel at his feet, he straight will fold his bloody colours up, and ransom shall redeem lives forfeited. If not, this day shall drink more English blood than e'er was buried in our British earth. What is the answer to this proffered mercy?
This heaven that covers France contains the mercy that draws from me submissive orisons. That such base breath should vanquish from my lips to urge the plea of mercy to a man, the Lord forbid. Return and tell the king, my tongue is made of steel, and it shall beg my mercy on his coward Bourcanet. Tell him my colors are as red as his, my men as bold, our English arms are as strong. Return him my defiance in his face.
I go.
What news with thee?
The Duke of Normandy, my lord and master, pitying thy youth is so ungirth with peril, by me hath sent a nimble-jointed jennet, as swift as ever, yet thou didst bestride. And therewithal he counsels thee to fly, else death himself hath sworn that thou shalt die.
Back with the beast unto the beast that sent him. Tell him I cannot sit a coward's horse. Bid him today bestride the jade himself. For I will stain my horse quite over with blood, and double gild my spurs, but I will catch him. So tell the capering boy, and get thee gone.
Edward of Wales, Philippe's second son, to the most mighty Christian king of France, seeing thy living body's living date expired, all full of charity and Christian love, commends this book, full fraught with prayers, to thy fair hand, and for thy hour of life entreats thee that thou meditate therein and arm thy soul for ere long journey towards. Thus have I done his bidding, and return.
A herald of Philip, greet thy lord from me. All good that he can send, I can receive. But thinkest thou not the unadvised boy hath wronged himself in thus far tendering me? Happily he cannot pray without the book. I think him no divine extemporal. Then render back this common place of prayer. To do himself good in adversity, besides, he knows not my son's quality, and therefore knows no prayers for my avail. Ere night his prayer may be to pray to God, to put it in my heart to hear his prayer. So tell the courtly wanton, and be gone.
I go.
How confident their strength and number makes them. Now, Audley, sound those silver wings of thine, and let those milk-white messengers of time shew thy times, learning in this dangerous time. Thyself art bruised and bit with many broils, and stratagems forepassed with iron pens, and texted in thine honorable face. Thou art a married man in this distress, but danger woos me as a blushing bride. Teach me an answer to this perilous time.
To die is all as common as to live. The one in choice, the other holds in chase. For from the instant we begin to live, we do pursue and hunt the time to die. First blood breathe, and then we blow, and After seed, then presently we fall, and as a shade follows the body, so we follow death. If then we hunt for death, why do we fear it? If we fear it, why do we follow it? If we fear it, how can we shun it? If we do fear, with fear we do but aid the thing we fear to seize on us the sooner. If we fear not, then no resolved profiter can overthrow the limit of our fate. For whether ripe or rotten, drop we shall as we draw the lottery of our doom.
Ah, good old man, 1,000 armors these words of thine have buckled on my back. Ah, what an idiot hast thou made of life, to seek the things it fears, and how disgraced the imperiled victory of murdering death, since all the lives his conquering arrows strike seek him, and he not them, to shame his glory. I will not give a penny for a life, nor half a halfpenny to shun grim death, since for to live is but to seek to die, and dying but beginning of new life. Let come the hour when he that rules it will, to live or die, I hold indifferent.
Exeunt scene 5, the same. The French camp. Enter King John and Charles.
Sudden darkness hath defaced the sky. Winds are crept into their caves for fear. The leaves move not. The world is hushed and still. The birds cease singing, and the wandering brooks murmur no wonted greeting to their shores. Silence attends some wonder, and expecteth that heaven should pronounce some prophecy. Where or from whom proceeds this silence, Charles?
Our men with open mouths and staring eyes look at each other as they did attend each other's words, and yet no creature speaks. A tongue-tied fear hath made a midnight hour, and speeches sleep through all the waking regions.
Oh, but now the pompous sun in all his pride looked through his golden coach upon the world, and on a sudden hath he hid himself, that now the under earth is a grave, as a grave, dark, deadly, silent, and uncomfortable.
A clamor of ravens.
Hark! What a deadly outcry do I hear!
Enter Philip.
Here comes my brother Philip.
All dismayed, what fearful words are those thy looks presage?
A flight! A flight!
Coward, what flight? Thou liest, there needs no flight.
A flight!
Awake thy craven powers, and tell on the substance of that very fear indeed, which is so ghastly printed in thy face. What is the matter?
A flight of ugly ravens do croak and hover o'er our soldiers' heads, and keep in triangles and cornered squares, right as our forces are embattled. With their approach there came the sudden fog, which now hath hid the airy flower of heaven, and made at noon a night unnatural upon the quaking and dismayed world. In brief, our soldiers have let fall their arms, and stand like metamorphosed images, bloodless and pale, one gazing on another.
I must give no entrance to a fear. Return and hearten up these yielding souls. Tell them the ravens, seeing them in arms, so many fair against a famished few, come but to dine upon their handiwork, and prey upon the carrion that they kill. For when ye see a horse laid down to die, although he be not dead, the ravenous birds sit watching the departure of his life. Even so these ravens for the carcasses of those poor English that are marked to die hover about, and if they cry to us, 'tis but for meat that we must kill for them. Away, and comfort up my soldiers, and sound the trumpets, and at once dispatch this little business of a silly fraud.
Exit Philip, another noise. Salisbury brought in by French captain.
Behold, my liege, this knight and 40 more, of whom the better part are slain and fled, with all endeavour sought to break our ranks, and make their way to the encompassed prince. Dispose of him as please your majesty.
Go, and the next bow, soldier, that thou seest, disgrace it with his body presently. For I do hold a tree in France too good to be the gallows of an English thief.
My lord Normandy, my lord of Normandy, I have your pass and warrant for my safety through this land.
Villiers procured it for thee, did he not?
Ah, he did.
And it is current? Thou shalt freely pass?
Aye, freely to the gallows to be hanged, without denial or impediment. Away with him!
I hope your highness will not so disgrace me, and dash the virtue of my sealed arms. He hath my never broken name to show, charactered with this princely hand of mine. And rather let me leave to be a prince, than break the stable verdict of a prince. I do beseech you, let him pass in quiet.
Thou and thy word lie both in my command. What canst thou promise that I cannot break? Which of these twain is greater infamy, to disobey thy father or thyself? Thy word, nor no man's may exceed his power. Nor that same man doth never break his word, that keeps it to the utmost of his power. The breach of faith dwells in the soul's consent, which if thyself without consent do break, thou art not charged with the breach of faith. Go, hang him, for thy license lies in me, and my constraint stands the excuse for thee.
What? Am I not a soldier in my word? Then arms adieu, and let them fight that list. Shall I not give my girdle from my waist? But with a guardian I shall be controlled to say I may not give my things away. Upon my soul, had Edward, Prince of Wales, engaged his word, writ down his noble hand for all your knights to pass his father's land, the royal king to grace his warlike son would not alone safe conduct give to them, but with all bounty feasted them and theirs.
Dwellest thou on precedence? Then be it so. Say, Englishman, of what degree thou art?
An Earl of England, though a prisoner here, and those that know me calls me Salisbury.
Then, Salisbury, say whether thou art bound.
To Salis, where my liege King Edward is.
To Calais, Salisbury. Then to Calais, pack and bid the king prepare a noble grave to put his princely son, Black Edward, in. And as thou travellest westward from this place, some 2 leagues hence, there is a lofty hill, whose top seems topless for the embracing sky, doth hide his high head in her azure bosom, upon whose tall top when thy foot attains, look back upon the humble vale beneath, humble of late, but now made proud with arms, and thence behold the wretched Prince of Wales, hooped with a bond of iron round about. After which sight to Calais spur amain, and say the prince was smothered and not slain, and tell the king that this is not all his ill, for I will greet him ere he thinks I will. Away, be gone, the smoke but of our shot will choke our foes, the bullets hit them not.
Exeunt, scene 6, the same. A part of the field of battle. Alarum. Enter Prince Edward and Artois.
How fares your grace? Are you not shot, my lord?
No, dear Artois, but choked with dust and smoke. And stepped aside for breath and fresher air.
Breathe then, and do it again. The amazed French are quite distracted with gazing on the crows, and were our quivers full of shafts again, your grace should see a glorious day of this. All for more arrows, lord, that's our want.
Courage, Artois. A fig for feathered shafts when feathered fowls do bandy on our side. What need we fight and sweat and keep a coil when railing crows outscold our adversaries? Up, Artois, the ground itself is armed, fire containing flint. Command our bows to hurl away their parted yew, and to it with stones. Away, Artois, away! My soul doth prophesy, we win the day!
Exeunt. Scene 7, the same. Another part of the field of battle. Alarum. Enter King John.
Multitudes are in themselves confounded, dismayed and distraught. Swift starting fear hath buzzed a cold dismay through all our army, and every petty disadvantage prompts the fear-possessed abject soul to fly. Myself, whose spirit is steel to their dull lead, find myself attained with strong surprise of weak and yielding fear.
Enter Charles.
Fly, father, fly, the French do kill the French. Some that would stand let drive at, some that fly. Our drums strike nothing but discouragement. Our trumpets sound dishonor and retire. The spirit of fear that feareth not but death cowardly works confusion on itself.
Enter Philip.
Pluck out your eyes and see not this day's shame. An arm hath beat an army. One poor David hath with a stone foiled 20 stout Goliaths. Some 20 naked starvelings with small flints hath driven back a puissant host of men, arrayed and fenced in all compliments.
Mortier! They quat at us and kill us up. No less than 40,000 wicked elders have 40 lean slaves this day stoned to death.
Oh, that I were some other countryman. This day hath set derision on the French, and all the world will blurt and scorn at us.
What? Is there no hope left?
No hope but death to bury up our shame.
Make up once more with me. The 20th part of those that live are men, and now to quail the feeble handful on the adverse part.
Then charge again. If heaven be not opposed, we cannot lose the day.
On! Away!
Exeunt. Scene 8, the same. The English camp. Enter Prince Edward with King John, Charles, and all captured with ensigns spread. Retreat sounded. Ensigns.
Now, John in France, and lately John of France, thy bloody ensigns are my captive colors, and you, high vaulting Charles of Normandy, that once a day sent me a horse to fly, are now the subjects of my clemency. By lords, it is not a shame that English boys whose early days are not yet worth a beard should in the bosom of your kingdom thus, 1 against 20, beat you up together.
Thy fortune, not thy force, hath conquered us.
An argument that heaven abides the right.
Enter Artois with Philip.
See, Artois doth bring with him along the late good counsel giver to my soul. Welcome, Artois, and welcome, Philip, too, who now of you or I have need to pray. Now is the proverb verified in you. Too bright a morning breeds a luring day.
2. Sound of trumpets. Enter AUDLEY, supported by 2 squires.
But say, what grim discouragement comes here? Alas, what 1,000 armed men of France have writ that note of death in AUDLEY's face? Speak thou whose death with thy careless smile, and lookest so merrily upon thy grave, as if thou were enamored of thine end. What hungry sword hath so bereaved thy face, and lopped a true friend from my loving soul?
Oh, Prince, thy sweet bemoaning sweet speech to me is as a mournful nail to one dead sick.
Dear AUDLEY, if my tongue ring out thy end, my arm shall be thy grave. What may I do to win thy life, or to revenge thy death? If thou wilt drink the blood of captive kings, or that it were restorative command a health of king's blood, I'll drink to thee. if honor may disperse for thee with death. The never-dying honor of this day share wholly, AUDLEY, to thyself, and live.
Victorious prince, that thou art so, behold a Caesar's fame in king's captivity. If I could hold him death but at bay, till I see my liege, thy royal father, my soul should yield this castle of my flesh, this mangled tribute, with all willingness, the darkness, consummation, dust and worms.
Cheerily, bold man, thy soul is all too proud to yield her city for one little breach, should be divorced from her earthly spouse by the soft temper of a French man's sword. Lo, to repair thy life, I give to thee 3,000 marks a year in English land.
I take thy gift to pay the debts I owe. These two poor squires redeemed me from the French with lusty and dear hazard of their lives. What thou hast given me, I give to them.
Renowned AUDLEY, live and have from me this gift twice doubled to those squires and thee. But live or die, what thou hast given away to these and theirs shall lasting freedom stay. Come, gentlemen, I will see my friend bestowed within an easy litter, then we'll march proudly toward Calais with triumphant pace unto my royal father, and there bring the tribute of my wars, fair France his king.
Exeunt, Act 5, Scene 1, Picardy. The English camp before Calais. Enter King Edward, Queen Philippa, Derby, and soldiers.
No more, Queen Philippa. Pacify yourself. Copeland, except he can excuse his fault, shall find displeasure written in our looks. And now unto this proud resisting town. Soldiers, assault, I will no longer stay to be deluded by their false delays. Put all to sword and make the spoil your own.
Enter French citizen, barefoot with a halter about his neck, with more behind him.
Mercy, King Edward, mercy, gracious Lord.
Contemptuous villains, call you now for truce? Mine ears are stopped against your bootless cries. Sound drums, alarum, draw threatening swords.
Oh, noble prince, take pity on this town. Oh, hear me, mighty king. Reclaim the promise that your highness made. The 2 days' respite is not yet expired, and we are come with willingness to bear what torturing death or punishment you please, so that the trembling multitude be saved.
My promise. Well, I do confess as much. If it be so, then let our covenant stand. We take possession of the town in peace, but for yourselves, look you for no remorse, but as imperial justice hath decreed. Your bodies shall be dragged about these walls, and after feel the stroke of quartering steel. This is your doom. Go, soldiers, see it be done.
Ah, be more mild unto these yielding men. It is a glorious thing to establish peace, and kings approach the nearest unto God by giving life and safety unto man. As thou intendest to be king of France, so let her people live to call thee king.
Although experience teach us this is true, that peaceful quietness brings most delight when most of all abuses are controlled. Yet insomuch it shall be known that we as well can master our affections as conquer other by the dint of sword. Philippe, prevail. We yield to thy request. These men shall live to boast of clemency, and tyranny strike terror to thyself.
Oh, long live your highness. Happy be your reign.
Go, get you hence, return unto the town, and if this kindness hath deserved your love, learn then to reverence Edward as your king.
Exeunt, citizens.
Now, might we hear of our affairs abroad, we would till gloomy winter were ours spent, dispose our men in garrison a while.
Enter Copeland and King David.
But who comes here?
Copeland.
Copeland, my lord, and David, King of Scots.
Is this the proud presumptuous squire of the north that would not yield his prisoner to my queen?
I am, my lord, my liege, a northern squire indeed, but neither proud nor insolent, I trust.
What moved thee then to be so obstinate to contradict our royal queen's desire?
No willful disobedience, mighty lord, but my desert and public law at arms. I took the king myself in single fight, and like a soldier would be loath to lose the least preeminence that I had won. And Copeland, straight upon your highness's charge, is come to France, and with a lowly mind doth veil the bonnet of his victory. Receive, dread lord, the custom of my freight, the wealthy tribute of my laboring hands, which should long since have been surrendered up, had but your gracious self been there in peace.
But Copeland, thou didst scorn the king's command, neglecting our commission in his name.
His name I reverence, but his person more. His name shall keep me in allegiance still, but to his person I will bend my knee.
I pray thee, Philippe, let displeasure pass. This man doth please me, and I like his words. For what is he that will attempt great deeds, and lose the glory that ensues the same? All rivers have recourse unto the sea, and Copeland's faith relation to his king. Kneel therefore down. Now rise, Edward, now rise, King Edward's knight, and to maintain thy state I freely give 500 marks a year to thee and thine.
Enter Salisbury.
Welcome, Lord Salisbury. What news from Brittany?
This mighty king, the country we have won, and John de Montfort, regent of that place. He presents you, your highness, with this coronet, protesting true allegiance to your grace.
We thank thee for thy service, valiant earl. Challenge our favor, for we owe it thee.
But now, my lord, as this is joyful news, so must my voice be tragical again, and I must sing of doleful accidents.
What, have our men the overthrow at Poitiers? Or is our son beset with too much odds?
He was, my lord, and as my worthless self with 40 other serviceable knights, under safe conduct of the Dauphin's seal, did travel that way, finding him distressed. A troop of lances met us on the way, surprised and brought us prisoners to the king, who, proud of this and eager of revenge, commanded straight to cut off all our heads. And surely he had died, but that the duke, more full of honor than his angry sire, procured our quick deliverance from hence. But ere we went, salute your king, quoth he. Bid him provide a funeral for his son. Today our sword shall cut his thread of life, and sooner than he thinks we'll be with him to quittance those displeasures he hath done. This said, we passed, not daring to reply. Our hearts were dead, our looks diffused and wan. Wandering, at last we climbed into a hill from whence, although our grief were much before, yet now to see the occasion in our eye, did thrice so much increase our heaviness. For there, my lord, oh there, we did descry, down into a valley, how both armies lay. The French had cast their trenches like a ring, and every Baccario's open front was thick embossed with brazen ordnance. Here stood a battle of 10,000 horse. There are twice as many pikes in quadrant wise. Here crossbows were deadly wounding darts, and in the midst like a slender point within the compass of the horizon. As 'twere a rising bubble in the sea, a hazel wand amidst a wood of pines, or as a bear fast chained into a stake, stood famous Edward, still expecting when those dogs of France would fasten on his flesh. And on the death-procuring knell begins. Off go the cannons that with trembling noise did shake the very mountain where they stood. Then sound the trumpets' clangor in the air, the battles join. And when we could no more discern the difference twixt the friend and foe, so intricate the dark confusion was, away we turned our watery eyes with sighs, as black as powder fuming into smoke, and thus, I fear, unhappy have I told the most untimely tale of Edward's fall.
Ah me, is this my welcome into France? Is this the comfort that I look to have when I should meet with my beloved son? Sweet Ned, I would thy mother in the sea had been prevented of this mortal grief.
Content thee, Philippe. 'Tis not tears will serve to call him back if he be taken hence. Comfort thyself as I do, gentle queen, with hope of sharp, unheard of, dire revenge. He bids me to provide his funeral, and so I will, but all the peers in France shall mourners be, and weep out bloody tears, until their empty veins be dry and sere. The pillars of his hearse shall be their bones, the mold that covers him their city ashes. His knell the groaning cries of dying men, and in the stead of tapers on his tomb 150 towers shall burning blaze, while we bewail our valiant son's decease.
Rejoice, my lord. Ascend to the imperial throne, the mighty and redoubted Prince of Wales, greater servitor to bloody Mars in arms, the Frenchman's terror and his country's fame. Triumphant rideth like a Roman peer, and lowly at his stirrup comes afoot King John of France, together with his son in captive bonds, whose diadem he brings to crown thee and to proclaim thee king.
Away with mourning, Philippe. Wipe thine eyes. Sound trumpets, welcome in Plantagenet. As things long lost when they are found again, so doth my son rejoice his father's heart, for whom even now my soul was much perplexed.
Be this a token to express my joy, for inward passion will not let me speak.
My gracious father, here receive the gift, this wreath of conquest and reward of war, got with as mickle peril of our lives as ever was thing of price before this day.
He presents King John's crown.
Install your highness in your proper right, and herewithal I render to your hands these prisoners, chief occasion of our strife.
So, John of France, I see you keep your word. You promised to be sooner with ourself than we did think for, and 'tis so indeed. But had you done at first as now you do, how many civil towns had stood untouched, that now are turned to ragged heaps of stones? How many people's lives mightst thou have saved that are untimely sunk into their graves?
Edward, we count not things irrevocable. Tell me what ransom thou requirest to have.
Thy ransom, John, hereafter shall be known. But first, to England thou must cross the seas to see what entertainment it affords. However it falls, it cannot be so bad as ours hath been since we arrived in France.
Now, father, this petition Edward makes to thee, whose grace hath been his strongest shield, that as thy pleasure chose me for the man to be the instrument to shew thy power, so thou wilt grant that many princes more bred and brought up within that little isle may still be famous for like victories. And for my part, the bloody scars I bear, the weary nights that I have watched in field, the dangerous conflicts I have often had, the fearful menaces were proffered me, the heat and cold, and what else might displease, I wish were now redoubled 20-fold, so that hereafter ages, when they read the painful traffic of my tender youth, might thereby be inflamed with such resolve as not the territories of France alone, but likewise Spain, Turkey, and what countries else that justly would provoke fair England's ire might at their presence tremble and retire.
Here, English lords, we do proclaim a rest, an intercession of our painful arms. Sheathe up your swords, refresh your weary limbs, peruse your spoils, and after we have breathed a day or two within this haven town, God willing, then for England we'll be shipped, where in a happy hour, I trust, we shall arrive, 3 kings, 2 princes, and a queen.
Exeunt. End of play. Yay.
Yay.
Long live the king.
I was not angry ere I came to France.